How important is it to have a guide that you trust or a guide that understands what they're doing? Is that like number one, even above what you're taking?
Number one. Yes, you have to feel safe. I remember having this conversation with someone. Their friend did mushrooms, not in a healing setting, but like just for fun, and then went to Times Square. And I was like, you have just set yourself up for a horrible trip.
If you're from New York, Times Square is the last place you want to be. Like sober, draw anything. Yeah, exactly. So why would you go there tripping?
So I think the person that you work with is of utmost importance, because they're going to be the ones who are providing the container for you. And you want them to be able to hold the space for whatever you have to go through. You have to trust that if and when it gets down to some deep grief or pain or hurt or whatever emotion that is buried somewhere inside of you, that this person can stay there and hold that for you as you go through it. And if you don't have that container, that's going to cause other issues. It's going to, especially while you're in the medicine, especially while your perception is very different. If you don't feel that safety, I mean, it's just like, if you think of it kind of like a parent and a child, if that child doesn't feel safe to explore, they're not going to explore. And so in that capacity, a shaman is almost like your energetic parent. They're like, I have you. You can do whatever you need to do. And I'm still going to have you. I'm still going to be here. And I see you. And so that's why I think it's really important to trust the person that you're doing it with. Yeah.
So would you recommend building a relationship with that person beforehand? You know, sometimes you just have a feeling, I've heard they're good people. I hear this sometimes when people go on these journeys and they're recommended or good people. I'm just going to go do it. Where I was like, well, do you really know them? And maybe you do that. But even I say in medicine, you go in, you don't actually perform treatments until you build a little bit of a relationship with a doctor. At least that's the way I see it at our clinic. You have a few meetings and then you decide whether you want to go through with it or not.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I've worked with, my teacher I worked with for 8 years. So like there was a trust built up between us. I knew she wasn't going to do anything to hurt me. I've heard of stories of people that, you go to like a yoga studio somewhere and like you do ayahuasca and then like, you go off into the street in New York City and finish your day or, continue. And I'm just like, that seems ridiculous in the context of healing.
Yeah.
And also, I personally like to work with people leading up to medicine journey. It's really funny. It's the difference in men and women. Almost all the women I work with, there's no resistance. So I can say something to them and they might not completely understand it yet, but they don't outwardly reject it. Men are so fucking resistant.
Of course we are.
So resistant. And it's so ego. It's so much ego. And I get it based off of like their conditioning. They can't be seen to be vulnerable. And like, I completely understand that. But just sitting there, I had this conversation with someone that I'm going to do a medicine journey with soon. And we were talking about something and he was talking about these relationships he's in. And in his words, he says, I think she just thinks I'm not enough. And so I'm like, what that's reflecting back to me is that you don't think you're enough. And he's like, no, I think I'm enough. And he went into this whole story. And then we get to another part of the conversation where every person he's ever been with has cheated on him. And, I don't know, maybe I'm not enough. And I'm like, and there we are. and so it's like that with men. I find it's very interesting having to like skirt the ego and like, how do I get you to see what I'm saying without coming up against the ego. So to your point, especially with men, I feel like I need to put in some work leading up to it, so I know what their ego looks like when it's coming. Like, I worked with this one guy, and anytime I saw his ego, I was like, give me 50 push-ups. And he would do 50 push-ups. He would come back and he's like, okay. But it's like, there has to be some way to break through that ego. And to do it in medicine journey is, okay, we could do it that way, but like, let's break the ego first and then get to, the ego is just your vigilant self trying to protect the vulnerable self. So if we could get past that and just get to the vulnerable stuff, then like you're going to progress faster.
You're clearing the path for seeing more, right? It's like detoxing the body before you do any therapy makes the therapy that much more effective. Exactly.
That's exactly the idea, except with the ego.
Yeah.
I'm like, can I choke you? Will that do it?
That's tough. And a lot of people don't realize what the ego is, or that it's there, or that it's so strong. You just live with it. It becomes, and it feeds off of this needing more. So it's a very difficult thing to break through. And, breaking a little bit of it down and going into that journey sounds like it could be quite a revelation to many people, especially men.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually doing a men's circle this upcoming weekend, and I think it's going to be very interesting because, first of all, you have a few men in the group, so there's already the like interpersonal competition ego.
The machismo comes out, a little bit of chest inflating, right?
Yes. And like in my head, I'm like, you are all going to be sobbing like little children in 2 hours. Can we just not do this?
Oh God, I wish I could see that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just really, the ego is, we start identifying with the ego. We think it's our personality. And, but if we recognize that personality is just a protective mechanism, then, that makes it just makes it a lot easier to work with. It's like, you're coming to me, and now you're resisting me. Why? Mm-hmm. And that's the ego. That's your personality, your defense mechanism. And it's like, can we just put that over there for a sec? So it's all a process. And, just like what you do at Innovative Medicine, it's not a end all be all solution to everything, but it is a way to get directly to the thing that you need to focus on in this moment for your healing.
Is there anyone you'd say that is not suitable for a medicinal journey? I mean, if they're coming to you and seeking it, it seems that they already have some intention, but what other things are almost prerequisites that you'd say would be necessary?
So, I mean, the first thing is, if you're seeking it, there's probably something in that. Yeah. I would say, obviously, I personally wouldn't work with anyone who is on psychiatric medication. Mm-hmm. I would work with them leading up to it to see where they're at. I've worked with people who wanted to do medicine journey, and after 3 months of working together, I've decided, like, you're not ready to do this. And so it's really dependent on how receptive I think they are.
Right. So you're making a judgment call on that too, right? You're feeling it out and seeing it, and you're guiding them, because it's not, in the end, it's probably your decision, correct?
Oh yeah.
To guide them. If you say you're not ready, they could say, I want to, but you have to be responsible. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to be the one doing this for you. And if I feel like you're not receptive to this yet, then I don't want to take that on.
Right.
So, and I can take on a lot. I am ready to deal with a lot of stuff. But if I recognize that there's part of you that just is not ready to do it, I'm going to say, this is not happening.
Yeah.